Hello guys, good morning. Hey guys, good morning. So, our discussion for this morning is um, a continuation on what we have started. Uh, we will continue the discussion on the pre-Socratic philosophers, particularly on Parmenides and Heraclitus. And then we're also going to talk about Plato and Aristotle's basic metaphysics. So, before I'm going to discuss Plato and Aristotle, let me let me discuss first Parmenides and um, Heraclitus. Yeah, yeah, sorry. So, today's lecture we're going to we get to know the philosopher Plato. No? So as a matter of fact, Plato is uh, acknowledged as one of the foundations of Greek philosophy, no, uh, for the vast philosophical work that he has left to us, no, to the human civilization. Plato was very popular for his works, particularly the Republic, which is where principles of democracy are being introduced. But at this point, we are concerned with Plato's metaphysics, which will be um, could help us, no, in our attempt to understand ethics. But before I'm going to talk with Plato, which is um, we are we shall go back to the pre-Socratic philosophers, no, wherein um, Plato had influences from the pre-Socratic philosophers, no? Namely, especially Parmenides and Heraclitus. So, sino ba ito si Parmenides and si Heraclitus? Si Parmenides at si Heraclitus, no? So, we will start with Parmenides, no? Um, okay, so Parmenides and Heraclitus. These two Greek philosophers introduced uh, these philosophical terms which had an influence in philosophy. They introduced to us the concepts known as being and becoming. What are these terms really mean in philosophy? No? Ano itong tinatawag nilang being and becoming? It was Parmenides who introduced to us the notion of being. On the other hand, it was Heraclitus who introduced to us the notion of becoming. So these terms, being and becoming, represents the way they understood the natural world, no, or the or reality. So being is Parmenides' term, which represents permanence, while becoming is Heraclitus' term that represents change. So we will start with um, Heraclitus. No? Heraclitus was very much popular with his saying, no? With his he was quoted for he was quoted to have said something like this. According to Heraclitus, one cannot step at the same river twice, or you cannot step twice in the same river. So what is the meaning of what does Heraclitus meant by that statement, no? That you cannot step twice in the same river. Ano ang kanyang nais ipahiwatig diyan sa salita na yan? You cannot step twice in the same river. Anyone who would like to explain to us? Ano ang ibig sabihin ni Heraclitus din sa saying na yan? You cannot step twice in the same river. Okay. Thank you, Gabriel. And also, merong mensahe sa atin si Princess, no? According to Princess, the world constantly changes. So, yeah, that's true. That's what Heraclitus trying to imply, that there is always change in the world. Yan, so yung the statement itself, you cannot step twice in the same river, simply because the second time that you step on the river, it's no longer the same river since the water continuously flows. So, hindi na yan yung exactly the same river the second time that you step on the water. No? Iba na yun because there is movement in the water. So, that signifies the reality of change in the world. So, we can observe in our surroundings, no? There is change you can observe in the world. So, with the element of time, you will notice that things change, no? Uh, Pinaka proof niyan is yung rotation, no? The rotation yung sinasabi ni Gabriel, no? Na the rotation of the universe. Tingnan mo lang yung movement ng sun in a single second, no? There is movement. Um, then of course, no, the inhabitants of the planet Earth, makita mo, plants change, there is may tinatawag na generation and decay, no? May bagong tubo na kahoy, may namamatay, may natutumba. Human beings also undergo the same uh, process, no? There is birth, there is death, there is change in the world, no? Even in our own person, meron ding change sa atin, no? From infancy to early childhood to being teenager, being a young adult, hanggang sa tumanda tayo, there is change, no? So that's why ang ano ni sabi nga ni Miss Princess Kayla, the one thing that is constant, the thing that is permanent is change. There is permanent change. So there is the reality of change in the world. So another Greek philosopher who also lived at the same time with Heraclitus in the person of Parmenides. So Parmenides disagree with this notion from Heraclitus, the concept of change. For Parmenides, he could not accept that um, reality of change, no? Because for him, change is simply an illusion, no? An illusion to the eyes. So, what is Parmenides' proof in saying that there is no such thing as change? And change is impossible. No? What you experience, what you think as change is simply an illusion. So, ano ba kasi, kung natingnan natin, ano ba kasi ang understanding or definition of change nitong si Parmenides, no? So, it seems that the definition of change by Parmenides is very much strict. Mas ano ang standard niya sa konsepto ng change, no? Because for him, change should manifest something that has total annihilation of object or annihilation of being. So, what is being? Ito yung unang tanong because that is the word that um, Parmenides try to introduce to us, no, the concept of being. So being is Parmenides term that simply refers to existence, no? Anything that exists is a being. Like humans, they exist in the world, we are called human beings. So any object is a being in the world. But the totality of beings, no, everything that exists in this universe is referred to by Parmenides as being with a capital B. Being. So, all of reality is called being by Parmenides. So, according to Parmenides, being is one. So, anong ibig sabihin niya ng being is one? And then he also said that whatever is. Whatever is not. So, what is the meaning of this statement? No, being is whatever is whatever is not. So it signifies Parmenides' belief in the notion of permanence. No, there's no change because everything is constant according to Parmenides. So when we speak of change as total annihilation, ang gustong mangyari ni Parmenides, gusto na yung isang bagay, pag sinabi mong nag-change ang isang bagay, yung totally naglaho siya, no? Like, for a certain object, for example, like a book, when this book uh, suddenly disappear without any trace, yan yung kanyang definition of change nitong si Parmenides. Yung totally, all of the sudden, from something or from being, no, then it suddenly becomes into nothing. From something to nothing. This is impossible because you cannot make something suddenly disappear as if like magic, no, without any trace. That's impossible. Like this book, when you're going to burn, you're going to burn, you're going to burn this book, it will only change into ashes. So there is only, or there is simply a transformation into a different reality because the substance of this object, no, this is a book. When you burn this with fire, you still have ashes. So it does not disappear totally because the substance remain, no? Andun pa rin. So there is no change, but for Parmenides, it only transformed into something else. So like, even if you're going to dissolve the ashes into water, it only discolors the water, no? The substance is still there. Nandun pa rin yung ashes nakahalo sa water, no? Sa glass of water. So, Parmenides believed that it is only an illusion, a transformation from one form to another, but it does not really represent change. Kasi yung isipin mo, di ba? Ang gusto niyang mangyari na ang tinatawag niyang change is from nothing suddenly becomes something. From nothing becomes being. And then from something suddenly becomes nothing. From being suddenly becomes nothing. Which is impossible, no? It's impossible for nothing then suddenly becomes something. Or from something suddenly becomes nothing. That's impossible for Parmenides. Kaya he could not accept the notion of change. Instead, he proposed the notion of permanence. So these two philosophers, as you can see, Parmenides and Heraclitus, they have opposite theories of reality. Di sila ma-reconcile, no? Kasi yung isa naniwala sa change, yung isa naniwala sa permanence. They could not accept each other's theories. And this is where Plato comes in, no? Because paborito niya itong dalawang Greek philosophers, no? He was influenced by Heraclitus' notion of change. At the same time, Plato was also influenced by Parmenides' notion of permanence. What he did is to reconcile these two philosophers, no? And as if Plato would like to tell us that tama ka, Parmenides. Ikaw rin, Heraclitus, tama ka rin. You do not need to argue with each other. The only problem is that each one of you is describing a different reality. And while Parmenides, for example, he was correct, but he was describing a different reality. So, bakit nasabi ni Plato ito? Because Plato has another concept to introduce. he introduced the concept of dualism of reality. What is dualism? According to Plato, there is a dual nature of reality. Dalawa, no? Duplex ba? Dual. Duplicity. May duplicate. Dalawa ang nature ng reality. So, Plato introduced to us these two worlds, no? Tinatawag na two worlds. So, tingnan natin yung ating PowerPoint. So, this is Plato. Ayan. So, this is Plato. Ito ang kanilang mukha, no? According to the sculptor. Since wala silang Instagram noong araw, hindi sila nakapag-selfie. So, we are represented with sculptures, no? So, ito ang mukha ni Plato. So, the theory of the two worlds ni Plato is being represented by this the story, of the allegory of the cave. So what are the two worlds being introduced by Plato? He is referring to the intelligible world and the sensible world. So what is the intelligible world and what is the sensible world? The sensible world refers to the world of senses, the world that we can experience. No? The sensible world refers to the objective reality outside, no? Something that we can experience with our naked eyes, no? We have our five senses to experience the sensible realities, a world that we can observe, we can touch. Yan. On the other hand, we have the intelligible world, no? The intelligible world refers to the world of ideas. So in every reality, anumang bagay, let us say for example, this laptop in front of me, it has an objective reality because I experienced the laptop. But on the other hand, the laptop could also exist in a mind as an idea. So, a reality has any objective reality, any object, no, a stone, a cat, a mirror, they have an object, they have a counterpart, they have a representation in a form of concepts or ideas or forms. In Aristotle's translation, it is a form, no? So, mayroong world of ideas, no? So, in Plato's mind, he believed that it is the intelligible world, no? The world of ideas existed prior to the sensible world. So, that means that the sensible world is only a photocopy, like a Xerox copy, no, of the intelligible world. So the sensible world is only a duplicate of the intelligible world. So in the mind of some creator, no, there is a creator of the universe. Prior to the creation of this physical universe, the idea of what the universe would look like already existed in the mind of a divine creator. So, nauna ang intelligible world according to Plato bago pa man nagkaroon ng sensible world. So, in the human body, for example, merong duplex reality, no? There is a dual reality of a human being. Man is represented with body and soul. Dalawa, no? O yung kaluluwa ay nagkatawang tao. The soul belongs to the intelligible world, while the body belongs to the sensible reality or the sensible world. And since the intelligible world, it is the world where ideas are eternal, and even the soul or spirit or mind is also eternal. So when the person dies, the body will decompose, but the soul or mind will remain in the intelligible world. In 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 ancient Greek, the word for soul is psyche, and it is also the word for mind. So mind and soul is almost synonymous, no, for the Greeks. Yan, so dalawa ang reality, no? The ideas versus senses, no? The in this example, the cat in the ideal world is perfect, no? Because when you think of a cat in the mind, the idea of a cat is perfect, no? There is no flow. There is no flow in that cat, no? It is perfect. But when you speak of a cat in the sensible world, the cat can be imperfect. It could be that yung cat ay hindi napaliguan, mabaho, or wala siyang balahibo. It could be na wala siyang tail dahil naputol. And so the cat in the sensible world is imperfect, while the idea of a cat is perfect than the sensible cat, no? The cat in the sensible world. So that is Plato's distinction between ideal world and the sensible world. So in the allegory of the cave, this story represents the distinction between the intelligible world and the sensible world. So Plato asks us to imagine, what if there are prisoners from birth, they are tied in a position in which the only direction they can face are the walls. And in the walls, there are shadows being represented. No? Inside the cave, there's an opening that allows light to comes in from the outside, and then it creates reflection in the shadows. No? In the walls, there are shadows reflected because of light, no, that passes through the opening of the cave. So in this picture, the prisoners have only seen the shadows, not the actual object. So for Plato, the shadows in the wall represents the sensible reality, because the sensible reality are merely photocopying of the actual object. These are reflections as shadows. But there is an actual world of reality outside of the cave. No? The outside world represents the intelligible reality, because the intelligible world for Plato is more than real than the sensible reality. So may mas totoo pa, no? In other words, Plato signifies that the body is only temporary. What is really true and permanent is the soul or spirit, no? The human soul. So it is here that Plato reconciled Parmenides and Heraclitus, no? Tama ka, Parmenides, but you are describing only the intelligible world. Tama ka rin, Heraclitus, but you are describing only the sensible world, no? Where change is possible. But in the intelligible world, there is permanence, absolute and eternal. So, kaya pala hindi magka-agree si Parmenides and Heraclitus because they are describing two different realities. For Plato, nature or reality is divided into these two distinctions, no? The intelligible and sensible world. These two distinctions. Itong si Plato, alam natin, no, he put up a school in Athens. Ginawa niya yung akademya. The most brilliant among Plato's students was a person named Aristotle. So si Aristotle, estudyante ni Plato sa akademya, but later on, when he transferred in Macedonia, he put up his own school. No? His school is named Lyceum. So for Aristotle, he agreed with Plato. No? Being a student of Plato, he also agreed with Plato that yes, you are right. No, there is a dual nature of reality. May dalawang aspeto ng realidad. Meron yung physical reality. Ang tinawag ni Plato diyan ay matter. On the other hand, merong spiritual reality, no? At yun ay tinawag ni Aristotle na form. So, in other words, nagkaroon siya ng sariling version ng dualism. So, pareho silang naniwala na there is a dualistic nature of reality. Halimbawa sa tao, there is the body, which according to Aristotle, belongs to the world of matter. And the other dimension is the spiritual realm, which is represented by the mind, which is intelligible. Kung saan nandoon yung ideas, the intelligible reality. Tinawag yan ni Aristotle na world of forms. So, in short, nag-agree si Aristotle kay Plato. But with a reservation. Meron siyang sariling reservation na hindi niya tinanggap mula kay Plato. So, to be able to demonstrate Aristotle's version of dualism, he came up with this notion of hylomorphism. What is hylomorphism? It comes from two Greek words. One is hyle. Hyle means matter. Morphos means form. So, combine the two words together, hylomorphism. So, it is known as the theory of matter and form. To demonstrate hylomorphism, Aristotle came up with, tinatawag niyang the four causes. What are the four causes? One is the efficient cause. We also have the material cause. We also have the formal cause. And lastly, the final cause. Apat na causes, the four causes. In this example, we have a sculptor, which is the efficient cause. We have a material cause, which is a granite. And then, looking at this granite, the efficient cause had an idea on what he is going to do with this block of granite. Meron siyang naisip upon looking at this material. Then eventually, after it is done, the final product, which is the final cause, is the monument to be placed in the agora of Athens. No? Dito ilalagay. No? Aristotle's argument, which also demonstrate the difference between Plato's dualism and Aristotle, is that Aristotle believed that the idea or form could not come ahead of the material cause. In other words, it could not come before the material um, object or matter. No? Because contrary to what Plato believed, nauna kasi yung idea prior to the actual existing object. In the mind of someone, nauna yung idea bago nagkaroon ng actual object. For example, a chair or a table was first conceptualized in the mind of a carpenter before it was actually made into reality. So there is primacy of the ideas. Nauna yung ideas. Aristotle disagree with that notion because the idea is nonsense. Is nothing when there is no existing material. Dapat nakita niya muna itong granite, how it looks like before he could think of what he is going to do with this matter. So nakita muna to bago siya nagka-come up ng idea. So for Aristotle, that means that they comes together as one. Itong matter and form, they are inseparable. There is no such thing as matter without form. There is no such thing as form without matter. There is no formless matter. There is no such thing as matterless form. They should go together. Yan ang argument ni Aristotle. No? What are the implications of this concept of hylomorphism? So that means in the human being, for example, in the Aristotelian sense, hindi mag-exist yung soul kung wala munang katawan. Yung tao. And then when a person dies, for example, when the body dies, the soul or the spirit or the mind also dies with the body. It could not exist on its own. The soul could not be separated, the soul is not separable from the body. They come together as one. And when the body dies, the soul also dies with the body. Yan ang significant difference between Plato and Aristotle. If we can call Plato as an idealist, Aristotle on the other hand is a realist. No, so if we talk about ethics, for example, being an idealist, Plato would say that we have to nurture our soul, no? Because that is the most important. It has high value compared to the body. So to be able to nurture the soul, this is what we are going to do. Contemplative itong si Aristotle. On the other hand, it was Plato who is contemplative, no, because spiritual ang kanyang priority. Kasi yung intelligible world, the physical body, has a high value compared to the physical world. Kasi temporary lang yung physical reality mo. Yung katawan mo is temporary. When you die, the soul remains. So dapat, to nurture the self, you give focus on the spiritual nature, the spiritual side. Aristotle, on the other hand, to speak of a soul without a body does not make any sense to him. What is a soul without a body? No? Parang ghost. Aristotle does not believe in such thing. Kasi sa kanya, you can speak only of soul when it is together with the body. So, he is more realistic because the concept of a human being by Aristotle is a body in a soul, which is cannot be detached from each other. And with this metaphysical worldview of Aristotle, we can have a glimpse of the kind of moral principle that he is going to show to us. No, hindi siya idealistic but realistic. And we will see later on that in Aristotle's ethics, no, the concept of virtue. So the ethics of Aristotle is known as virtue ethics. We will see we will see later that Aristotle's concept of morality is something that is inward. Inward ang it is directed to the self, no? To nurture the self rather than to nurture or to do good things for the sake of others. Kumbaga, the emphasis is not on other people. Kasi when we talk of morality, usually, to do good for others. But, Aristotelian version of morality, particularly the concept of virtue, is something that is directed towards self-improvement, to be a virtuous human being is to acquire balance in our actions, no? Balance in our personality. Yan yung kanyang virtue ethics, which is can be achieved through the virtue of the mean. There's another notion that will be discussed in Aristotle, the concept of the mean, wherein you are going to balance your actions between two extremes. On one side, there is excess. On the other side, there is lack. So, you are going to play between excess and lack. In other words, in every action, wag mong sobrahan. Wag din magkulang. No? Kung ikaw ay nagmahal, halimbawa, wag kang magmahal ng sobra-sobra. At wag din kulang. No? You have to stay at the middle, at the center. Balance. No? Yung kanyang virtue of the mean ni Aristotle, parang meron siyang measuring tool, no, that you're going to weigh in na hindi dapat sumobra yung extremes, no. Wag sobrahan, wag excess, wag lack, but only on the middle. You have to balance your actions. Yan yung Aristotelian concept of virtue, no. Pag masyadong matapang, hindi rin maganda yon. Pagka nagkulang ka rin sa tapang, ikaw ay magiging duwag, hindi na rin maganda yon, no? So you have to develop the exact virtue of courage. Yan ang ano ni Aristotle, virtue ethics. So we will see that it is for the self, no, not specifically for others, no, but for the to develop a certain character, no, of the self. Let us hear from Gabriel, who maybe has something to say. You are raising your hand, Gabriel. Oh, kanina pa yan? Kanina pa, okay. Yan, so yan ang ano, yan yung ano, the importance here kasi yung, for example, makita natin that when we study Aristotle, all the ideas that being discussed by Aristotle, hindi yun sa kanya lahat, no? These are, first of all, these are reactions from the philosophy of Plato. So, merong tradition na pinanggalingan. There is a culture and tradition na pinanggalingan sa mga pinag-iisip ni Aristotle. Hindi yun kanya lang lahat. First of all, it was a reaction from Plato's worldview, Plato's philosophy. And then Plato's philosophy, first of all, was also influenced by the pre-Socratic philosophers. may pinagmulan yung philosophical belief nitong si Aristotle. Hindi lang yung kanya lahat, original, no? Siya lang nag-isip. But what is interesting is to see that, for example, in Plato, in that period, no, in the I think in the 4th century BC, ahead of Jesus Christ, no, that's 400 years ahead of Jesus Christ. And Plato was already able to think of that kind of dualism, which is also similar to what we understand today, no, in as Christians, for example, and even Muslims. We believe in that same metaphysical dualism. We believe in the distinction between the body and the soul. Meron tayong ganyan ngayon eh. Yan yung dominant Christian worldview. And even the Islam, no? Merong the body is temporary. Then on the other hand, there is the soul which is eternal. That's why the soul will be the one to suffer, no, to to nourish the reward in heaven, and also to suffer punishment in hell, no. It is the soul that will will relish the reward or punishment, but the body will decompose, the body will die. Yung Platonic worldview, yan yung dominant worldview, no, sa Christian world. So prior to Christ, actually existing na itong ganyang thinking, no? Especially in the philosophy of Plato. But Aristotle, on the other hand, is more we can say realistic ang kanyang approach, no, in understanding the nature of human being, rather than focusing on the other side, on the soul. Kanya is yung self, to nurture the self, which includes the body and the soul together. Relevant din ang body for Aristotle because kasama yan in your identity as a human being. You cannot be just a soul, but you must be a body and soul altogether. They are inseparable, no? Like matter and form, no? The body consists of mind and body, no? Spirit and body. A human being consists of spirit or mind and body. Hindi pwedeng spirit lang. And from there, diyan natin makita natin yung the kind of ethics that Aristotle emphasized. It is not something that is contemplative, no, that is directed only to the soul, but it gives emphasis on human character, yung the actions that you are going to do in this physical world. So yan, we are trying to establish the metaphysical picture wherein the ethics of Aristotle will be possible. Yan. So, and it's interesting also to learn from how they look at reality in the early ancient civilization, BCE, no, period, BCE meaning before Christ era. Before Christ, no, before Christ, or before common era, BCE or BC. So nauna pa sila kay Christ actually. So if we believe in the historical existence of the philosophers who lived 400 years before Christ, then how much more how can we doubt the existence of Jesus Christ who only lived later? Diba? Kung ito nga si Plato at Aristotle, naniwala ka na totoo silang nabuhay sa mundo, how much more with Jesus Christ na the only Jesus came later after the pre-Socratic philosophers, no? And then also when we speak of Jesus, merong maraming martyrs, no, na willing magpakamatay, and they do not uh, renounce their faith in Christ, no. Baga nagkaroon ng community who were early Christians, and then they were persecuted, no. As a matter of fact, in the Bible it was mentioned in the New Testament, si Saul who later became Paul at naging santo pa, naging Saint Paul. He was before siya naging Paul, he was first called Saul, who was uh, persecutioner, no. Siya yung nag-persecute sa mga Christians. Pinapatay na yung mga Christians as being a soldier of the Roman emperor. Tapos imagine the early Christians who died for their faith, no. They never renounce their faith to the point that they are willing to die. So, di ba, if you think about that, kung mayroong mga taong ganyan, kung sabihin mong hindi totoo may Jesus, na hindi totoong may Jesus, gawa-gawa lang natin si Jesus, hindi totoong may Jesus na nabuhay, pero bakit tayo magpapakamatay sa Kanya, no? And there were people who really sacrificed their lives for their faith. Yung mga early Christians who became martyrs. So, it's hard to say na hindi totoo si Christ. There is a historical proof. And one of this is yun nga, this early Christian communities who are willing to die for Christ, no? They are willing to die for their faith. Kasi yung the Roman Emperor, natakot sila sa Christians dahil dumami. So they persecuted the Christians. Pero hindi natakot ang mga early Christians. So they die for their faith. Okay? Ito the attendance for this morning. Tawagin ko yung mga pangalan ninyo and then please say present. Charlize, Jessica Alexander, Virginia Marie, thank you. Kayla Dayan, Carl Nick, Syra Haley, Gabriel Alvaro, Rainer John, Rainer Cruz, Sandy, Sebastian Rose, Jeneline, Maria Micaela Isabel, Angelica, Cloven Joy, Randley Lorraine, Christian John, John Paulo, Shaina Carmel, Francesca Alain, Maria Christine, Puerto Rico, present. Piolo, Stephanie, Jerwin, oh. Saan kayo? Nasa dorm? Saan? Bakit kayo magkasama? Oh. Ay, ikaw si Manikad. Ah, sorry. O saan si Jerwin? Wala? Ah, sige. Louis Angelo, Adrian, Charlie Main, Princess Kyla, Eula May, Carl Ivan, Carl, Justin, Mark, Pauline Larenas. Okay, yung iba no? Rainer John, Sebastian, Angelica, Carl Ivan. Guys, do you have any concerns about the class or about the lessons? Okay, before we go, may I request you to turn on your camera for for a kwan screenshot. Eh, alright, wait lang ha, saglit lang. Saglit lang. Okay. So, thank you so much for this morning. Have a nice weekend. So, we are going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much for your time. Oh, email na lang, email kayo ha. Email na lang kayo kung may mga questions. Thank you. arriba, syempre, letrahan. Breakfast muna. So, bye everyone. Stand by for the next session later this afternoon. Thank you for watching. Bye.